And we are live, guys. Let's go. Let me go first to my if you haven't watched this yet, go skip for like a few seconds because I want to make sure that I can see who is chatting with me here, and for that I need to open up a second part. Boom. Let's go live, and we are live, guys. Awesome. Yeah, we'll just turn the sound down. Boom, live chat. All right. Awesome, guys. I'm looking forward to chatting with you. And we're going to discuss the three buckets of prioritization in business. And this is the hardest thing to do, by the way. To succeed in business, there's three different things Alex Formosi talks about. It's focus, it's patience, and then frustration tolerance. That's it. If you're going to succeed in business, you're going to have these three. And focus is very tricky to do when you don't know what you should be doing. And so you need to learn that there's three different buckets of prioritization in business, and in fact in life. So if you want to like, I talk about the secret is found in your daily schedule, and the secret, by the way, is work. So if you insert work into your daily schedule, then you're going to have some form of results that's going to make your life better. The reason why it makes your life better is because you're serving other people. When you serve other people, then they serve you back or create win-win situations of sorts. And that allows you then to have a better life. The moment you stop serving other people is the moment you become depressed, is the moment you start making less money, and is the moment that life is no longer worth living, actually, because work is the key. And the more masculine you become, the more of a leader you become, the more you want to make the world a better place, the more you'll understand this concept that entrepreneurship is about solving problems for people. And when you solve problems for people, life becomes better, the world becomes better, everyone is better off for it. So put in the work. Having said that, what work should you be doing? Because you can only focus on one thing at a time, right? Like if I tell you you need to think about the pink elephant, and then you think about the pink elephant, and then I want you to think about a purple cow, right? Purple cow, pink elephant, purple cow, pink elephant. Yes, you can put them in the same screen in your mind and see both at the same time, kinda. But then if I was to ask you what color, like if I was to ask you more details about that picture, you wouldn't be able to tell me. It's a little bit weird allegory, but it makes a lot of sense to me because the more items is in your picture, the less detailed you can be about the item in the picture. I've mentioned this to someone this past week. When you are trying to do there you have width and then you have depth. Depth is where the magic happens. Width is when you get massive options, right? It's like you have so many different alternatives, and now you are finding out which one is worth going deep with, because you don't want to go deep with something that is not worthwhile and is not going to create a win win situation for you. And that's a lot of people and a lot of situations that are not worthwhile following through, right? So we first go wide and then we go deep when we find the best alternative. So if we now bring that to the aspect of focus and prioritization, let's say you have 100 options. Yeah, you're going to have to slim it down, right? Let's slim it down to 20 things, okay? You still have too many things. The reason why is because you can't go deep with all 20. Everyone's going to be shallow. This is the life of a player, by the way, just so you know. You're going to end up having shallow relationships, and the joy, bliss, and happiness comes from depth. Interesting how that works. So you have 20, but there's no depth, there's no connection, there's no future. You can't make things happen because you can't get into the details. And there's no real connection happening. And I'm talking about business now. And I'm talking about business projects. I'm talking about women. I'm talking about anything in life. At some point, you want to focus and go deep, because that's where the magic is found. We go deep in talents, businesses, women, whatever it is that we want to create a expertise in, right? Like, you won't be able to remember. I don't want to get into too much of the details. You guys understand the aspect of, like, 100 is just too many. You bring it down to 20, it's still too many. You bring it down to 3, now you can kind of begin to go into the details of some of it. But guess what? You can still only focus on one thing at a time seriously. Out of 3, you focus on one at a time and give it all your attention. Why is that? It's because then you can go into the details, and the devil is in the details. What does that saying even mean? The devil is in the details. The details is what makes you, or is what gets you paid. Like, someone who's seen something 10,000 times is worth so much more than someone who has seen something 500 times or 10 times. Like, the reason why you get newbie mistakes is because you haven't seen it before. You don't know what to expect. If you've seen something 10 times, 100 times, 10,000 times, you know exactly what to expect. Let's bring it to the basketball court, okay? For example, if you play against the same person again and again and again and again, and that person does not improve, meaning he doesn't get new ways, he doesn't get new dribbles, he doesn't get new shot selections, he's just the same player over and over and over again while you're continuously improving. Over time, you're going to be able to guess his every step. And you're going to get good at the details when it comes to that specific person. Now, if a new person comes on the court that you've never played against, you don't know what he's going to do. And so as a result, you're going to have a harder time, depending upon, obviously, the skill levels of each person. But if they're equally good with that person that you've played against many, 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 many times, obviously you're going to be more successful with that person you've played many, many times, right? Again, it's the details. And life functions that way. There are certain lessons that we need to learn that takes time to learn, and that we won't be able to graduate from that lesson before we've actually succeeded properly with that lesson. Like, once you succeed with the lesson of life, you can now graduate and move on to the next lesson, which means that you're problem solving continuously instead of problem stacking. So, having said that, you want to go deep if there's a problem that you don't understand. And if you can't solve it, you go into it and start talking to other people about it. You start ChatGPTing the heck out of it. You start watching YouTube videos about it. You start understanding what experts are saying on the subject. You try to figure out everything that you possibly can about that one specific thing, no matter if it's a game, it's a talent, it's how to operate in business in the specific industry that you're in, etc., etc. And inside those 3, we spoke about the 100 too many, 20 too many. Now we have 3. Inside of those 3, you'll find out that each of those businesses, let's talk about business for now, they have 100 individual details inside of the business. Yo, then it gets complicated. Imagine if you had tried 100 businesses with 100 different things inside of each business. That would have been 10,000 things that you need to get good at. Like, a waste of time. You can't figure it out. You won't figure it out, so you'll suck. You'll be mediocre. Okay? So we brought it down to 3. Inside of those 3, there's 100 specific things inside of the business. So let's say you choose 3 different industries. Okay? So inside of each industry, there's 3 different businesses. You could have 100 different businesses inside of that industry, but okay, you managed to narrow it down to 3. Inside of that specific business, there's now 100 specific details that need to be learned. And then, okay, I can't do 100 at a time. Great. So you narrow it down to the 20 most important things to do, and then maybe the most important 3 things to do, until you now only have 3 things to focus on, and you figure out the 100 details in those 3 things. Success is a numbers game. Focus is a numbers game of eliminating as many options as possible so as to be able to prioritize. And people suck at this. This is why you win. Once you understand this lesson. And if you don't understand this lesson, you can't win because there's others out there that do understand the lesson. Going back to Hormozzi's 3, focus, patience, and the ability to be frustrated, right? The pain tolerance of being frustrated. That's how he put it. So the patience is being able to go through all of the crap of the other alternatives to figure out what needs to be neglected, what needs to be completely, utterly put aside. I'm not interested in those things. I say no to it, which allows you then to focus on those things that need to be focused on. And while you're trying to focus on those things, you will have pain of frustration tolerance, right? And you'll have the impatience because you want to go deep and it's going too slowly. But the reason why it's going too slowly is because you're so diversified. That's why it's so important to understand that you only work on one business project at a time until you're massively successful. Once you get one business to $1 million and you've replaced yourself completely, then you can move on to the next businesses. So crucial, this one. Okay. So the 3 buckets that I've mentioned throughout this video, let me explain them real quick together so that you get where this goes. All of these options, we bring it down to what we want to focus on. And what ends up naturally happening are those 3 buckets. One is growth. The second one is maintenance. And the third one is complete and utter neglect. Those 3 things. And this goes in business. This goes in terms of women. This goes in terms of family, in terms of health, in terms of everything. There are certain aspects in every single category of life that requires most importantly, your neglect for you to not care about it. And then there are some things that requires your maintenance. And then there's one single thing at a time in each category of life that deserves your focus. And this is the growth mode. This is where you learn every single detail about that one specific thing until you are the resident expert. And there's no one on the planet, preferably, that understands more about this topic than you do. That's when you win inside of that arena. Michael Jordan was that person in basketball. No one's outcompeted him. Okay, he's going to be a legend for sure. But people who watch those 2 separate entities, right? You can just, the biomechanics behind Michael Jordan is obviously still a debate. But like Michael Jordan became that expert and they've never really played properly together, right? So you get my point. Growth, maintenance, and then neglect. So running this back to business. Business, by the way, is everything in your life. And what I mean by that is that everything is a business entity. Like, for example, I have business where I'm making money, yes, but my health is also a business from the standpoint of it needs growth. Some things need maintenance and other things can be neglected. Okay? Like, for example, my pinky toe does not require my growth or maintenance mindset. It is completely and utterly neglected. Obviously, I'm not going to hurt it because then that's just stupid, right? Because then suddenly everything else comes out of whack. But I don't need to focus on it and I don't need to maintain it, right? My fingernails, they need to be cut sometimes. That's maintenance. If I don't cut them, then it's not nice. Like, it's gross to have 2 long nails. So if I'm doing business meetings and they see my long nails, then it's like, it's a problem. So at some point I need to go in growth mode and actually cut my nails, right? Because it needs focus until it's done. So, but I'm trying to explain that everything in life is a business that requires either growth, maintenance, or neglect. In terms of your family members, there's some family members, unfortunately, that preferably all of your family members in your inner family, okay, I'm not talking about necessarily extended family, but you could consider that as well. Which people do you want to have a relationship with? Who do you want to have an amazing relationship with? Those should be in the growth department. If you want to make sure you keep a relationship over an extended period of time because you know that they're going to be there 20 years from now, 30 years from now, you should probably try to maintain those family relationships. I'm not the best at this. I'm not the best at all this stuff, right? But I'm speaking to me here. And then you've got neglect, which could be, the grandson, or the father-in-law to my sister-in-law. You get what I'm saying? Like, that's an extended family that just completely requires utter neglect because there's just no connection there. He's probably not going to be in my life, whoever it is. I just gave an example. The next 20 or 30 years. So why should that require my attention of growth and maintenance? So life is about prioritization. Life is about you figuring out what's important to you and what's not important to you. And in many ways, that's why we're created, because you become what you prioritize, because you spend time with what you prioritize, and you spend time with people who prioritize the same things. So if I want to prioritize business, I'm not going to spend a lot of time with dating coaches. I want to spend a lot of time with business people, right? I'm not going to spend a lot of time with swimmers who are athletes, right? Who are preparing for the Olympics. Sure, I can learn some things from them and have nice casual conversations, if I'm meeting them on the street or at a party somewhere, but they don't require my growth unless they require business or peak performance coaching, but they probably already have that filled since they're preparing for the Olympics. Do you get what I'm saying? So that requires complete, utter neglect for a period of time, unless that's one of my dreams and I want to achieve that, of becoming a swimmer in the Olympics. If you want to succeed in business, you need to prioritize growth. That means you get rid of anything and everything that does not have anything to do with business unless it is required for you to succeed in business. So I'll give you another example. What needs to be maintained in order for you to actually succeed massively in business? You need to have good health, because if you don't have the energy to keep going 11 and a half hours a day for the 80-hour work week, you're screwing up business. The thing that needs to grow cannot grow if you're not maintaining some certain things and parts of your life. If I'm not exercising on a regular basis, it's going to have an impact on my business. If I don't play basketball, for me, that's my therapy. That's going to have an impact on my business. If I don't maintain, a good relationship with my kids and with my wife, maybe for a time, sometimes that requires my full attention in growth mode, not for longer than, an hour or two, because the moment you put all of your focus on it, then it becomes worse, right? From a female nature perspective, and you should never ever put all of your focus on a woman, because she'll begin to not like you very much, right? And so you need to have some things in maintenance and some things in growth. And the vast majority of the time, if you're not yet a millionaire or financially free, so you don't even have to think about the price tag on any product that you need that doesn't, that's not for status, then you should be making money and you should be focusing on growing that part of your life. And everything else needs to be either on maintenance or on inside of the neglect department. Those are the three. Remember them well: growth, maintenance, neglect, and then begin to prioritize the things that are in your life so that you can focus on the one thing at a time that's going to give you financial freedom and success. I'm Joseph Darling. I'm the founder of OnTrack. I'd love to coach you for free for 5 days. If you're the right person for that, DM me on Instagram, Joseph.ONTRACC, with 2 C's at the end. And I would love to work with you and find out how I can help you to become more focused, create better peak performance in your